Hello everyone and welcome to part 15 of Dead Rising Infinity Mode Guide. I don't know why I keep saying guide, it's not really much of a guide these days. But anyway, we're still here at Paradise Plaza where we left off. Gotta turn up the volume again for frig's sakes. So I'm not sure which survivors are where at this point. But I'm going to take a look at the movie theaters because there's a ton of food there that I haven't touched yet. Excuse me. So the last vid I was talking about how I would talk about my criticism of The Witcher 2. Let me start off by saying I don't hate The Witcher 2. I think it's a really well-intentioned game. I think that it has a lot of good ideas in it. It has interesting, very, very interesting ideas revolving around morality. And it has good ideas going for it, but the combat, the problem with it is that all of it just doesn't sit well with me. Like, let's start off with the difficulty, because I had to play the whole through game. I said that totally wrong. Let's start that again. I had to start the whole game on easy because I tried doing it on normal. I couldn't even get past the tutorial. I literally died on the tutorial because I was just like, everyone was standing still in the tutorial and I was like, okay, I'm getting a feel for this. This is alright. And then once everyone starts moving, I'm like, what the frig? What's going on here? Too much shit happening. So and that basically translated into the game itself, outside of the tutorial. It was way too hard in the beginning, and then somehow it progressed into getting easier over the course of the game. When you started upgrading your potions, getting higher vitality levels, your swordsmanship, your alchemy, your magic. I forget the name of the magic. Maybe it's just called magic, or maybe it's called something else. I don't know. It went with signs. That's what it was. Signs. The skill tree itself isn't really that advanced, which is fine. I'm totally fine with typical skill trees. It's just that whenever I go on Reddit, everyone and their mother is praising this game, and I really cannot understand the life of me why everyone considers this game for a masterpiece. So that's one part. The difficulty is that it's way too hard in the beginning, and then somehow it gets progressively easier as the game goes on. Whereas in other games, in any game at all, really, it would be easy at the start to help you get yourself integrated into the game better. And then it gets harder as the game goes along, as you're getting farther in, unlocking more power-up skills, level-ups, etc., etc. So the difficulty is one bad point that I have. Criticism. Why did I say bad point? The difficulty is one criticism I have of The Witcher 2, Assassins of Kings. Number two is the story itself. Now the story, I think, is very interesting. It's certainly not perfect, but it's interesting. It revolves around a witcher, well that's what the title of the game's called, The Witcher, who's basically going around. He doesn't want to be involved in the combat, but he's basically forced to pick a side, otherwise he's going to get himself killed in his ultimate quest to find out who he really is, because he's suffering from amnesia. And that's a very interesting premise. As someone who hasn't played the first game, though, it kind of makes me feel left out because all these characters keep popping up left, right, and center that know each other. Like Dandelion, the guy who has an American accent in a game full of English accents for some reason. Not that there's only one. Triss Marigold and Geralt himself aren't British, but that's besides the point. Actually, I don't remember what the point was. Oh yeah, the story. So all these characters kept popping up, and I didn't really know who they were, because they were in the previous game, The Witcher, on PC only, and I'm a console gamer, so I didn't have any access to play The Witcher. And then once we get further into story, I start realizing just how monotone the voice actors are in the game. None of the voice actors in the game really have any range. Geralt at times can be a badass, but there are times in the game where the actors are either too far away from the mic or they're too close to the mic. So what'll end up happening is Geralt will be like talking in the middle of a cutscene, and then he'll say something like, "My name is Geralt of Rivia, and I am a Witcher." Like that close to the mic. I was just like, whoa man, chill. So, I don't know. The voice acting was pretty dull. It wasn't terrible by any means, but it could have been done way better. And for that matter, they could have actually have a reason for us to give a shit about the characters. Triss Merigold, she's gone for like half the whole game. After you bang her once or twice, depending on how you fancy her in the game. The game seems to be really focused on having Triss as a love interest. I've never been with anyone else though. Triss is by far one of the more interesting characters of the game, but again, she's gone for half the game. Once you leave Flotsam, she's basically gone until you're near the end of Loch Muin, which is kind of disappointing. And one thing that put me off about The Witcher 2 was just how much of an asshole everyone is to each other. Everyone, like, there's not one good guy at all in that game, except for maybe Geralt. But he's basically dragged along into doing whatever shit the assholes want him to do. Like Vernon Roach. Vernon Roach seems to be an alright guy at first, but he lies to Geralt about something. I'm gonna warn people about spoilers in this video, don't you worry. I probably should have said that earlier, but anyway, Vernon Roach is a bit of a conniving asshole, and Deathmold, I mean, how can you trust a guy whose name is Deathmold? He just by looking at him, you can tell he's a bad guy, but he, everyone is just two-timing in that game. Even, like, the kings. King Henselt, I think his name was, he appears to be a good guy at first, looking after his citizens, but then he's, like, from what I remember anyway, he basically rapes one of the female people, I guess, in the village in the second act, if you chose Roach's path anyway. So there's not one character that's like 100% good, and that's all right. But when everyone has like asshole traits, it gets a little tiring seeing all the negativity in the game. I think it was Jim Sterling who made an episode of the Jimquisition called "Crying Through the Laughs," and he basically he only talked about Final Fantasy games in that regard, but he still pointed out that it got really annoying having to deal with a constant sense of dread and negativity. And that's what I felt about The Witcher 2, is that it felt way too depressing of a game to play. With Dead Rising here, I mean, look at what I'm wearing. Is that not the epitome of positivity? Look at his face. It's like 100% happy. You can deal with all the silly stuff like Ratman here and Mega Man helmets and other Capcom references. There's all sorts of silly stuff in this game that off-puts the serious nature of zombies. But with The Witcher, all we get is a bunch of people swearing in Cockney accents. And that is funny at first, but once you realize that's the game's only source of humor throughout the game, other than Geralt's intimidation lines every now and then, those are really the only sources of humor the game has to go on. It's not a very cheerful game, and that's why I find it kind of poop, basically, in that regard. Like I said, it's not terrible, it's just, I don't know, I'm not as big of a fan of it as other people are. I don't know why I didn't mention the combat at this point, but I guess I saved the best for last. The combat is excruciatingly silly, I guess would be a word to put it. The combat does work for the most part, but again, it falls prey to the hard at first, then it gets easier later on. So if you manage to get past the prologue on a more harder difficulty, like normal or hard, or God forbid dark difficulty, if you manage to get past the prologue, you'll be dealing with all sorts of neckers and dregas, I think they were called, and all sorts of things that you never even saw in the prologue. Now all of a sudden you're thrust in to deal with them. If it weren't for the tutorial, you wouldn't even know that a silver sword was more effective for beating them. The game doesn't hold your hand, certainly, and that's fine, but this game doesn't really hold your hand too much either. It just has well, I guess it does. That's a bad example, because it has, in story mode, it has the arrow. Let me find a better example off the top of my head. Chrono Trigger, that's a game that doesn't hold your hand. And it is one of the most bright, most colorful, and most cheerful games I have ever played in my life. And it just puts a smile on my face every time I see a picture or a video of it on YouTube. The music, the graphics, the presentation, the characters that we actually give a shit about in the game, everything about Chrono Trigger, it comes as close to being a perfect video game as possible. With The Witcher 2, I didn't really feel that. I didn't really give a shit about the characters. I thought the graphics were great. The graphics look fantastic for Xbox 360 standards. Especially considering that the game looks way better on PC. But I didn't give a shit about the characters. The combat itself was annoying because it was really a crapshoot at best. Traps I barely ever used, and bombs, they were nice, but you have to... Here's the thing about making bombs. You have to do alchemy, and what alchemy is, you have to find a place to stand still. There are some spots that just won't let you do alchemy for whatever reason. But anyway, whenever you find a spot to do alchemy, you stand completely still like this, press back or whatever, and then move towards alchemy, skill tree, blah 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 blah. Not skill tree, sorry, the tab. And then you go to make your potions or bombs or whatever. Now, the inventory itself has one of the most clunky, most misdesigned user interfaces I've ever seen in video games. The user interface for the inventory screen is atrocious. I don't care what anyone says. Having to press the right bumper or left bumper like 10 times just to get to a tab I want to get to is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. I know it was designed for PC in that regard, but why would you have that many tabs just for menial items? Like, there's one whole tab reserved for junk. Junk! Like, what were they thinking, having that many tabs for the user interface? And then there's the quests, and don't even get me started on the quests. Like, it would be fine to not give me a quest icon at all. But in that regard, Saints Row the Third, which is a game I just beat recently, Saints Row the Third has these challenges like assassinations and whatnot. Now, assassinations, they don't exactly tell you where your target is. They give you hints, though, as to where they are. So it helps to find them, having those hints. With The Witcher 2, no hints whatsoever. You are just left with a vague story explanation, and you're left to your own devices to find where the heck that is. If they continue that mindset into Witcher 3 with an open world setting, then God help us all, because I will never be able to get anything done. I don't need to have a quest tracker, I just need to have good instructions on how to approach a mission. That's it. And as for preparing for potions, well, you have to make sure to drink those potions before combat, because you can't drink the potions in combat, which defies all logic. I mean, why would you not be able to drink potions before a battle? It makes sense. It makes sense from a realistic standpoint, but it's just annoying. If Skyrim can do it, I mean, hell, Dark Souls. You can do that in Dark Souls, and Dark Souls is one of the best damn games ever made. Anytime someone says, "Oh, Witcher 2 is the best RPG ever game," I sounded so retarded there. Let me try that again. Anytime someone says that The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings is one of the best RPGs ever made, I have to point out Dark Souls. Because Dark Souls is beast. Dark Souls is awesome. It has all sorts of hidden stuff in it that makes an RPG what it is, but it's just, the combat feels so great. Every weapon has their own animation, their own special attacks, and what have you. Every weapon in combat in Dark Souls just feels right. It just feels great to kill a giant dragon with a small, puny little sword, or whatever weapon you may have in that game. And if you're a pyromancer or a sorcerer, that's even better. You can use all sorts of spells in that game, and they work. They're functional. They're not like the signs where they're crapshoots, like Quen. Quen? Is it pronounced Quen or Ken? I'm gonna say Quen. Quen is basically the only spell that you need in The Witcher 2, which is basically just a protective barrier. And you can upgrade that more on the magic path in the skill tree. So that's my rant about Witcher 2. How long did I rant about that for? 16 minutes, okay. I'm not gonna have you listen to me talk about Witcher 2 anymore. I will have you watch me burp though. Listen to me burp, not watch. You can't see me. I'm John Cena. I don't want the nightstick. Oh, here's Sophie. I went from saving her in the story mode to killing her in this mode. So if I didn't bring it up at this point, here are some zombies. Some zombies have now appeared in the security room, and from what I understand, they stay there until the 8th day. Then they're gone. This guy doesn't even know I'm here. Doesn't die from headshots? What the heck? Okay. That was a rather haphazard, that was a rather half-assed explanation of my Witcher 2. If anyone wants to debate with me on why The Witcher 2 is a great game, please feel free to do so. I love having different opinions mixed together, and that's what debates are all about anyway. So anyway, that's just my take on Witcher 2. You don't have to agree with it at all. We can just agree to disagree. So, and we are halfway through day 6. We are almost done of Infinity Mode, as I said in the last vid. So in the meantime, thanks for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy the next part.